So I really encourage you to watch this video, look at the passages, think about them a little bit. There'll be questions on YouVersion, on the live event that goes with this video. I'll also post the questions on our social media sites if you don't have YouVersion. And so watch the video, think about it, think through the questions, and then when we get together by video on Wednesday night, we'll connect a little bit, we'll pray together, and we'll go over the questions and share what we thought about these passages from Scripture. So for today, I just have a couple passages that have really stuck out to me as we've been going through this coronavirus thing and this whole crazy situation. And there's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty out there. And while coronavirus itself is a new thing, fear and uncertainty definitely are not new. There's been fear and uncertainty since the beginning of time, since the book of Genesis. And the Bible has a lot to say about it and a lot that we can be encouraged by and challenged with. And I just have two passages that stuck out to me. If you've been going through the Lent study with us, these will be familiar. But go ahead and turn to Matthew chapter 8, and we'll start at verse 23. And again, there's a YouVersion live event, or you can turn in your paper Bibles to look at that. And the cool thing about video is if you're looking at a paper Bible and you're a slow page turner, you can pause me, get to your passage, and then come back to the video. But anyway, Matthew 8, verse 23. And when Jesus got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, Save us, Lord, we are perishing. And he said to them, Why are you afraid, O you of little faith? Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, What sort of man is this, that even winds and sea obey him? And so we see Jesus and his disciples in this passage. They're in a boat, and it's not a huge like houseboat. It's a little fishing boat. They're out on the Sea of Galilee, which is a large body of water. And from what I understand, that there are storms on the Sea of Galilee, and they get pretty crazy. The winds kick up, and the waves pick up, and it just gets pretty crazy out on that water in a little boat with a bunch of guys. I remember last summer I was out at the Queen Mahoning, and I was doing some paddle boarding, and the wind kicked up and the waves kicked up, and I'm out there on this paddle board, and I was a long way from the boat launch, and I'm trying to paddle back, and I'm paddling and not getting anywhere. And then my paddle board kind of turns sideways, and I flip off and fall off, and I wasn't really scared I was going to die, but for a moment I'm like, man, am I going to get back to the boat launch? And so if you've been through a situation out on the water like that, you can kind of understand what the disciples are going through here. It's scary to be in a boat when the sea is wavy and rocky. And the disciples in this passage are just losing it. They're going crazy, thinking they're going to die. They're going to perish in this boat. And meanwhile, look what Jesus is doing. Jesus is laying in the boat, sleeping. He's resting peacefully. And I don't think he was resting just because he was a heavy sleeper. I actually had a buddy in high school, and he was a really heavy sleeper. And we were spending the night at another friend's house, and somebody got up in the morning and walked across the room and stepped on my buddy's head, and he didn't even wake up because he was such a heavy sleeper. I don't think that's what was going on with Jesus here. Jesus was just at peace in the midst of this craziness, in the midst of all the other disciples flipping out, feeling like they're going to die out on this water. Jesus is just completely at peace. And Jesus is at peace because he knows who controls the wind and the waves. He knows who is in control of his life. He knows whose plan he is a part of. And he knows that God has things under control. And so as Jesus wakes up, we see that he looks around and he doesn't go nuts thinking he's going to die on the sea, but he actually confronts the disciples and says to them, why are you afraid? Where's your faith at? Don't you know the God that you trust in? That he controls this creation, that he has your life in his hands. And that if it's your time to go, it's your time to go. But if it's not, God will care for you and protect you. And how much does that remind us of our world right now? Things are crazy out there. We got this virus going around. We got all kinds of closures and that sort of stuff. And people are panicking and buying every sheet of toilet paper that's being produced right now. But Jesus challenges us, just like he challenges the disciples. Where is your faith really at? What are you really trusting in? What is really your security and your identity in? Are you trusting in a God that has things in his hands, that has this virus in his control? And no matter how widespread it gets, that it's not out of Jesus' hands, or it's not out of God's hands, it's not out of God's control. It's still a part of his plan, and he's still working through it and doing something through it. And I think it's also really interesting for us in that passage what Jesus does. He doesn't just confront the disciples and say, guys, don't worry about the storm, who cares, it's not a big deal. He actually stands up and rebukes the winds and the seas and calms the seas. He realizes that there is real danger here, and that they do need to respect the seas, and that there is something that they need God to deliver them from. And so as we continue in this situation, this crisis, whatever you want to call it, we need to first remember that our faith and our trust is in the God who created the universe, and understand that God sees our situation. He understands it's a tough situation. He understands that we need protection and we need deliverance. And we have the opportunity to go to him and to pray to him, to ask him to protect us, to ask him to work through this situation, to ask him to deliver our community and our country from this, and to ask him to do something awesome for his glory through this. That we would see that God is really in control, and God is really the one who holds our life in his hands. And so again, I challenge you, where is your faith at? Where is your identity at? What are you trusting in? And what are you going to be doing to continue to build that faith and that trust through this tough time? Even if everybody else around you is losing it and panicking, are you trusting that this is still in God's control? Can you rest peacefully like Jesus does? And I want to challenge you with one other passage as well. That along with keeping our faith in Jesus, we need to keep our focus on Jesus as well. Look at Matthew chapter 14 and verse 28. That's Matthew 14, verse 28. And again, here we see Jesus and the disciples are again out on the Sea of Galilee. Again, there's a big storm. Things are rough, and Jesus actually isn't in the boat with the disciples to begin with. The disciples are just out there on their own, and again, they're scared in this storm. And they look out across the waves, and here comes Jesus walking across the waves, walking across the water towards them. And look at what Peter does in verse 28. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. He said, Come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." And so I think something that's awesome that we kind of pass over sometimes, and that is Peter actually stepped out of the boat, and for a while he actually walked on the water. While his focus was on Jesus, he walked through the wind and the waves on top of the water. It was only when he lost his focus on Jesus that he started to crash and started to sink into the water. And so my challenge for you from this is keep your focus on Jesus. It's going to be really easy to be distracted in this time. There's a lot of just news and happenings to distract you and to put all your attention on what's going on with Corona, how many people are sick now, what's open, what's closed, is there any toilet paper. There's all that stuff to distract us, and we need to keep our focus and our eyes on Jesus. And even there's good things to distract us. Right? You're out of your normal routine. You're not going to school. You're not coming to church on Sunday mornings. You're not coming to youth group on Wednesday night. It would just be really easy just to get into video games and Disney Plus, watching Frozen 2 for the 20th time or whatever you're doing. Right? It would be really easy just to get sucked into all that stuff, because you don't have these regular things like school and church and youth group to keep you accountable and keep you focused. And so I want to challenge you, stay accountable. Stay focused on Jesus. Continue to pursue him. Continue to do the things that build your relationship with him. Because that's going to make your faith stronger. That's going to help you to stand and walk through this tough time and this storm. But you got to keep your eyes on Jesus. I got to keep my eyes on Jesus. It's easy for me to get distracted being reactionary. What do we do with church? What do we do for youth group? What do we do with getting together with people? Guys, we got to stay accountable and stay focused on Jesus through this time. And that's really the purpose of these videos. That's the purpose of the Wednesday night video chats. Just to give you a little piece of truth from the Word, give us a little bit of time together just to try and keep each other focused and accountable and on track in following Jesus. Right? We may be away from school and work and friends and all that stuff, but it's not a time to take a break from Jesus. Being away from that other stuff hopefully actually gives us more time to spend focused on Jesus and spend with Jesus. Are you using your time well? Are you using it to focus on Jesus? Are you building that faith that's going to hold you through this and going to allow God to do something awesome through this? I think this could be a really awesome time for God to move in the lives of people in our church, people in our community. When people are scared, they're looking for something to turn to. And guys, we have a solid faith and a solid hope, and we need to continue to build that and focus on that in ourselves. And we need to take the opportunities we can to speak with our family and our friends and our neighbors and show them why we can be solid and why we cannot be losing our minds and why we're not sinking into the waves, because we have a faith in the creator of the universe, because we have a focus on Jesus and who he is and what he's doing, even in this crazy time. So I just want to challenge you, keep your focus on God. Keep building your faith. What things are you doing in your day-to-day now just to stay grounded in your faith? What unique opportunities do we have in our community to reach out to them? And what things are distracting you? Is there some routine you can build into the next couple weeks that'll keep you accountable to the Word of God, to prayer, and to serving and loving other people? And hopefully these videos help. Hopefully our chat on Wednesday night helps. And just thank you guys for tuning in, for continuing to be a part of this. And I look forward to when we can be back together in person again. So I'll talk to you guys on the video chat.